All right, beautiful people. We are episode 25 of an Untold narrative. This is actually how unfiltered and raw that I am, but this is actually the second take that I have to do of the same recording. Unfortunately, Zoom did not save my recording for some reason. I think I X'd out of it incorrectly. So it's technically my fault. I'm not going to blame Zoom. Regardless, I thought it was a killer episode, and I got to redo it. Now, this episode, for those who have been listening or watching an Untold Narrative, know that I primarily interview people. I have conversations with people. This one, to kickstart 2021, is actually just going to be me and you, and by me and you, I just mean me, talking. I wanted to use this opportunity, not only because it's episode 25, which is a numerical milestone, if you will, but it's important to kind of kickstart the new year. It's been everybody's had a very rough and impactful 2020, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about what was accomplished, what I've been able to do, talk about some of the feedback, talk about some of the things that I want to do in the coming months, in the coming year, and share it with you guys. I think a lot of this was sparked and put as an idea into my brain through a conversation today that I had with a friend of mine who reached out just via phone call and wanted to chop it up and ask me a bunch of questions. And I figured if he had those same questions about some of the things that I'm doing, maybe some other people would too. And that's why I figured I'd take the opportunity to spend a few minutes talking about some stuff. With that being said, the first thing I think, reflecting on the year we just had, like I said, it's been a tough year. Everybody's, had some challenges, but I'm very fortunate to say that there were some things that I was able to accomplish this year that I don't know if I would have been able to do if it wasn't for the pandemic or for quarantine. I think first and foremost has been the podcast, right? But before I get into that kind of list, if you will, of things that I can reflect upon and be super happy about, is over the past couple of days, you look back and on social media and things, people are being proud and sharing some of the highlights of their past year. And then I see either it's comments or other people sharing their thoughts of like, not everybody needs to share what they've done this year. You don't need to do this. You shouldn't do that. And I'm just like, guys, it's been a fucking dog shit of a year. If somebody was proud of what they've been able to do and they want to share it with their friends, let them fucking share it. Why do we live in this negative culture that demonizes people like that? It's crazy talk. So that's the first thing I want to say, right? Like, click the unfucking follow button. It's there for a reason. If you don't like what people are sharing, I'm not gonna just tell somebody to not share what they've been able to accomplish. It's been a fucking tough year. So I feel like if you've thought about that, or if you're one of those people, just recognize that, social media is one free. So if you don't like it, don't fucking use it. But then two, like, let people, you don't know what people are going through. If they want to share some of the things that they've been able to accomplish, like, let them do that. And so I'm tired of this negative culture. I'm tired of everybody looking at things negatively in a higher capacity than looking at the positives. So that's what I wanted to do on this episode. I wanted to talk about some of the things that I've personally been able to accomplish that are easy to be lost sight of, that I necessarily don't always reflect and take the time to acknowledge. But I want to do that. And the first thing is obviously the podcast. It happened through quarantine. Would not have been able to do it otherwise, I don't think. I think, I was living in this really fast life, this really, really over the top, go mentality before. And I still have that. It's just more localized. It's less global, I guess, if you would. And I'm really happy to say that we went through 3 seasons. We went through 24 episodes. We had tremendous guests. I learned a ton from everybody. I've received a lot of positive feedback from people. So thank you if you've listened to anything, even like people have told me in passing conversations, they're like, oh yeah, I listened to that episode, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know you listen. So thank you for doing that. It means the world. I mean, the fact that, people don't tell me necessarily that they listen to it and then they're like, oh yeah, I heard that on Untold Narrative. It's kind of funny. So thank you for that energy. I think, it started with just trying to share a platform for people to tell their stories, voices that are not necessarily heard or don't have a huge following or, have never been given an opportunity to share their story. I think that's really important to people. So providing people a chance to talk about themselves and what they've been able to accomplish. That's always been the goal of this podcast. And so I think with that being said, it's perfect for myself to just come on. A lot of people have requested and asked me to talk about it. And even in my conversation earlier with my friend, they were asking me questions about my art and stuff like that. And I'll get into that, but I think it's important to just think about all the things we've been doing. So first is obviously the podcast, 24 episodes. Episode 2, Atticus Radley from New York City, tremendous photographer. Go check him out. Said that if I get to 100, he's buying me a nice bottle of champagne. I'm not a quitter. I will get to 100. I promise you that. So this is episode 25, quarter of the way there. I think the second thing, obviously, that I'm really excited still about, and moving into 21, one of my goals is to launch another 2 collections, is launching the brand Devonshire, right? So launching a clothing brand, this in 2020, I just made a t-shirt. That was the goal, is just make a black t-shirt. I'm wearing a black v-neck from Devonshire right now, if you're watching the video. And it just grew into this 12-piece collection of clothing. And I made it for myself. I had no intentions of selling it. Ended up selling just the kimono before the holidays, and a number of people reached out and inquired about it and purchased it. But then I also gifted some to some people as well. Everything's cut and sewn, so I make it all myself. I'm super happy with how it's been coming out, but there's definitely more design that I can explore, materials that I can explore that I'm really excited about. So in 2021, I plan on creating another couple collections for it. So stay tuned for that. But I think the second thing is obviously launching a clothing brand. It's spending the time. I rent this studio space here in Worcester, Massachusetts, that not only gives me a studio to paint in, but also create clothing. They have sewing machines, they have cutting mats, the whole 9 yards. I don't have to keep any of that in-house myself. Third of all, obviously, has been the art, right? And that's what stimulated the idea to do this one-on-one talk with just myself is my friend was asking me about art, like, how do I have the time to put out that much of it? It takes time, juggling all these different things. And my main point back to him was, it's all about what you want out of it. Nobody's forcing me to make art. Nobody's forcing me to make a podcast. Nobody's forcing me to do anything. I just want to do it. I have ambitions and goals myself that I don't necessarily think this is the time and the place to share those. We'll get to that eventually. But if you want to do art or do something different, and he makes his own art and he's just like, I don't have like the capacity to do all these things all the time and they take so many hours, don't beat yourself up. The world's judging you every single day. Why are you going to judge yourself? If you don't have the mental capacity or the physical capacity to do something this week, don't do it. Get to it next week. But it's all about what you want out of it. If you want to create art every single day, every single week, fucking do it. And so that's really the mentality that I take. I love the creations that I'm able to do. I might have gone above and beyond a little bit this year. I might have pushed and above and beyond, not in terms of skill level or anything like that, because I'm still growing in that aspect, but more so of taking on so many projects myself. And I totally burnt out at the end of the year. And I'll talk about that a little bit towards the end of this episode. But the art aspect is the studio space that allows me to create art. And, the art thing is funny. Not everybody knows this, but this upcoming March, it'll be 2 years where I applied for a second job. Didn't necessarily do it for the financial aspect, although at that point in time, 2 years ago, I did own my house. and I was going paycheck to paycheck. I didn't, you know, the house was consuming every project, all my money and things like that. So I needed something to give me a little bit of fun money, basically. And so I applied. I had no really previous experience painting at all, and applying to this job, this paint bar. They've not only taught me certain skill levels throughout painting. It's very similar to designing or rendering, in my opinion. I actually like to I like to break it down very similarly to a rendering of footwear. Is you have your line work, you have your base colors, and you have your highlights and your shadows, and you build up, and that's it, and it's the same. And I think that can be applied to a lot of things, actually. So you know, I started the second job. I learned it throughout the quarantine. I obviously got laid off or stopped working there because they shut down. And I took all that skill set that I had and I learned, and I started applying it for commissions. I'm super proud and I'm happy to say that I've done 6, 7, 8 commissions throughout 2020. You know, it might not sound like that many, but if you think each painting takes, you know, anywhere between 15 and 40 hours, and I'm doing 15 things, I'm really excited that I was able to do that. You know, the last commission painting that I did was in November-December. It was the 23, all 23 Jordans on one canvas, 36 by 48 inch canvas. It was one of the largest pieces I've ever done. It took me upwards of 40 hours. I was completely burnt out after. I didn't paint all, like, pretty much the month of December. I was just, I had it. It was too much for me, but still thankful and reflecting on the year. Having the studio space is a massive accomplishment, and I'm thankful that I'm able to go there outside of working from home, but then a space that allows me to create in different aspects, where I'm able to sew clothing or create art. So creating art, even though it's not for necessarily a monetary reason, I was gifting some arts. I've been gifting prints of arts, and but also selling some through TikTok and stuff like that. So I am thankful that I've been able to do that. Also, I think with that being said, speaking of working from home, I think a major accomplishment that we should all reflect on, if you're in this situation, if you've been working from home throughout 2020 for the past 9 months, I think that is a major, major accomplishment, especially if you're not used to it. I've previously never worked from home. I never liked it. It's been a massive transition. If you've survived and you're still in good health, and you know, we'll all encounter anxiety and depression, and you know, you can look at the numbers throughout the United States, and they're at all-time highs right now throughout any age group. I think this type of change that we've all had to incur came at such a rapid pace, and you know, all blindsided us, and it's been a lot. And so if you've survived, if you're still here moving into 2021, we can take everything that we've learned from working from home and apply that, and take that as a win, because it's not easy. Working from home is not easy. I think one of the things I was talking about with my friend is he asked me, like, don't you miss, like, the physical samples or the physical time together? And it's like, yeah, I miss people. I desperately miss people. I'm an extrovert, I guess, and I feed off of people's energy. I constantly give energy, and I expect it in return. It's a lot more difficult to do that in a virtual world. I miss water cooler conversations. I miss having meetings, and then you brainstorm and they lead to a different project. That type of innovation, a lot of brands and a lot of companies are missing right now because they're in a work from home state. How do we fix that? How do we come up with a different solution? How do we come up with a different alternative? I don't know the answer to that yet, but I think it's something that's been missed, and we got to figure that out. But I think working from home is a major feat, and people should be proud of themselves if you've been in that situation. Because I know I am. I'm tired of staring at the same 4 walls every single day. It's exhausting. So other than that, I think what else was it? I golfed a lot this year, which I was super happy about. It was my one, like, escape from reality. So juggling all these different projects, golfing throughout the summer months was such an escape of reality for me that it was like, okay, you you can, socially distance, you can, be active, and then you can learn a new skill. So that to me was like a very personal kind of accomplishment that I'm happy I did it. I'm thankful. I know it costs money, and you gotta weigh those things, but I'm really fortunate that I was able to, and then also happy that I did it, because it definitely gave me a little bit of sanity. I'm also, many of you don't know that I volunteer some time for the Worcester Arts Council, which I'm very proud to be part of and give back to the community a little bit. It's not a ton of time, but you work with a bunch of people and you try to share your experiences and your knowledge, and support the community with state funds. And I think that's really powerful. And just to rifle right off of that, I think a major thing that I can look and reflect back on was being able to co-donate $3,600 to the Equal Justice Initiative in June. I think after the murder of George Floyd, I think after seeing these impactful videos on Twitter, on Instagram of things that are out of a movie, like beyond movie, they're so unrealistic, and then they happened in real life. I still get chills talking about it. I get chills right now up my spine thinking about, like, it's so vivid to me. I remember that Friday night before I shared a post on that Saturday morning. I was taken aback. I was like, what happened? Are these the humans that I coexist with in the United States? It was so shocking. And I think being able to open up and ask people to donate, and then be able to match, I think it was like $1,250 myself, and then my friend in Seattle matched that as well, and then collectively being able to do $3,600. I think that's amazing. So I've always think I've been a half decent human, but never have I thought about donating on a regular basis, which I've tried to do more through homeless shelters, through Goodwill, through Salvation Army. I think quarantine's allowed us to reflect and look around these four walls that we're sitting in every single day, the 600 square feet that I'm sitting in. What do you need? What do you want? What don't you need? And what don't you want? And you're able to reflect and look back on all of it, and move forward, hopefully in a better way. And it's definitely as tough and as exhausting as it's been. I can definitely say I'm in a better state today than where I was 6 months ago. I'm really happy with things that I've been able to do and get through. And I think a lot of you should be reflecting on that as well, if you're in a similar state. And like I mentioned, just again, going right off of that, it's been such a year filled with anxiety, depression, not being able to see friends, family, strained relationships, friendships, things that people don't talk about, things that people don't share online, right? Things that people don't want to talk about. And towards the end of the year, the last 2 months, I definitely burnt out. I burnt out of the podcast. I think I launched one episode between November and December, because I just I wasn't in it. I didn't have the emotional, mental capacity to do it. I was tired of it. It was the end of a really long year. And so even between the commissions and this and my job and everything else, I was completely burnt out. And so I'm really bad at that. And I do try to work on that, specifically with my therapist, of like, how do I avoid these burnout situations? But I am happy and proud that I did take a vacation in December. Just before Christmas, I booked a trip to Hawaii. So I'm actually going to create a vlog about traveling during a pandemic. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, it'll come out. But I'm happy about going to Hawaii during these times. And I think that's, it was something that I needed. I needed some sun. I needed to learn something new. I needed, just a new environment. I think we have to mix up our habits and stuff like that. So I'm very thankful that I was able to do that and afford it. Obviously, cost some money. Um, the learning that something new was definitely the most important part. Shout out to Sam, my surf instructor. I learned how to surf. I actually got to stand up on a surfboard. It's basically like paddling really fucking hard for like, it felt like 5 minutes, and then doing a burpee and getting up. Wildly underrated sport. Crazy. But my instructor is from Rhode Island. He knew a kid I graduated design school with. So you talk about a small world. It's like these type of experiences don't happen unless you're out in the world, and I think that's something that we all have missed. And so learning a new skill, learning a new trade, sitting on an airplane was so fundamental for me. It's one of the longest times or periods of times that I haven't been on an airplane since I was like 16. I've always been traveling. I've been to 30 countries now in 29 years, so I'm thankful for that. But that I feed off of that. That energy of new culture, of new people, is something that I live for. And so I just need it. It got too far. I know that I need it like once every 6 months, and not doing it for almost a year, 9 months it was too long. So just be self-reflective about that, I guess, is my point. But doing all of these things throughout the years has been major accomplishments. Could I have done more if the world was quote unquote normal? Maybe. But like I tell people, things or situations aren't necessarily good or bad compared to where they previously were. They're just different. And so we'll wrap up now. But I think in the coming year, I plan on, consuming healthier foods. I think that's something big that I really want to focus on, consuming better content, healthier content specifically. I think Shu Jones, who we've had on the, said it beautifully. Is like, social media is exactly like what you consume in terms of food. It's like if you consistently consume bad food, you're gonna, feel like shit. It's the same thing with media. So I definitely want to do that. I want to work on it in a new regular format. I think, changing up my habits more frequently. I can't keep doing the same thing over and over because I don't learn anything new. But yeah, I think the major thing is, what do you take away from last year, and how are you going to change that? I think, leave it in the comments, like, subscribe, hit me up. If you've gotten this far, I appreciate it. This is episode 25 of An Untold Narratives. Thank you all for tuning in.